The music world moves fast. Want to stay up to date on the latest albums and get in-depth examinations with the artists? Check out Consequence of Sound, the podcast. Bite-sized album reviews for the music fan on the go who wants to stay in the know, and much more. Subscribe to the series on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider, and let the writers of Consequence of Sound steer you right. Check it out at consequenceofsound.net/COS podcast. Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org. Consequence of Sound and the Consequence Podcast Network. Go ahead, take a moment right now, hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening from, YouTube, podcasts, anywhere. Hit the subscribe button. We put out multiple interviews every single week and would love to keep you along for the ride. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Cat Power, Shawn Marshall. She's got a brand new record called Wanderer, and we're going to get into its minimal style that harkens all the way back to Moon Pix from 1998. In fact, there's a lot of ties between those two records, and we're going to get into a lot of those, as well as talk about the importance and the power behind songs like Woman and Black, her collaborations with Lana Del Rey, and a lifelong practice of three chords and the truth. It's a beautiful record. It's a powerful interview. It's Kyle Meredith with Cat Power.
Hello.
I think it's been talked about a little bit. It goes back to a minimal style that we haven't heard from you in a little while. Is there any reason for that? Was it just necessity of what was laying around? Did it drive you to that type?
I think that, with my last record with Sun, I was told I needed to make a hit record for that record. It changed it did something to my process. I'm not sure what it did. I don't want to say it changed my process, but it put me on alert. And so for this one, I was pregnant when I was setting up my studio. And I think because, after I'd had my son, he was 3 months when I started recording, I think that I'd already given myself a very thick layer of protection for myself, for my body, my health, my child, my home, and I was living in the studio, the house that I rented where I built the first studio. So I think that it only made sense that I was protecting my artwork, my songs, and I only wanted to listen to whatever it was that I felt I wanted to give the songs.
You mentioned your son. I mean, there he is on the cover with a little piece of him anyway with the guitar. I mean, symbolism. These are the two anchors in your life. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct.
And you called it Wanderer. I mean, that's to find stability as a wanderer, as a traveling, musician.
Wander, actually, for me, it's not about wandering around the world. It's like a state of mind where we have our life, we have our path, and we have choices. I think it's more like a state of mind of, before you set forth, you contemplate, So it's really, we are, I don't want to say as humans caught between, different dimensions. We know that those who've come before us, we are gone, and we don't really know our future either. So we're kind of just, I don't want to say stuck on Earth, but I feel like if we can utilize our potential of self-empowerment and liberating ourselves and a deeper sense of ourselves, that it may embellish fortitude on our path as we go forward.
I'll actually bring up a quote then to see if that kind of fits into what you're saying with the first single, Woman. There is that really powerful line, maybe my favorite from the record, where you say, "The doctor said I was not my past, that I was finally free." Does that fit in a little bit with what you're talking about there?
Yes. I mean, I think there's several different things on the record that show that. Yeah, there's a sense of closure,
I mean, I think your journey was probably much harder than mine, at least different anyway. But I know most of us would like to hear those words, that we are not our past, that we're finally free. I know I certainly would. I mean, that's...
that's also having done the work in therapy and, holistic medicine, because I also have an autoimmune disorder. So having a doctor tell you that you're, after years and years and years of being like under scrutiny of being just a sensitive, shy person who happened to sing songs on stage, and there was sort of like a scrutiny against that because I wasn't posturing or fabricating like a sexuality about myself. I think that it was difficult for me to perform live. I think, when I was younger, and there was a lot of judgment about that. A lot of critics talked a lot about that, but there were a lot of things personally in my life that I internalized since I was a kid, and not until my mid-30s did I begin work with trying to shed light and sort of give balance to those emotions and recognize my place, my part in those things. And I think once my doctor said that to me, that I wasn't even, after having done, about 8 years of work, saying that I wasn't even a depressive personality type after being misdiagnosed over and over through the system. It was so liberating. It's very hard to describe how settled and rest assured and calm and, in my solitude, how I just felt okay, and I think that also comes with age as well, and also being a parent. You stop caring about other people's bullshit and danger. You just stop, and you move away from it completely.
With Black, and again, this is another powerful moment amongst many on this record. It seems like there's a moment of light from a very dark moment that happens within that song. How long did it take you to be able to write about that or subjects like that? Is that something you have to put on the shelf for a while?
No. All of these songs, all of my songs I've ever written, they come as quickly as you hear them, as you're listening. That's as quickly as they come out from my brain. They just come out. They just come out like, opening a door and wind coming in. And that's so it's always been. I've tried to sit down and write a song without music, and it's impossible. But I usually just play a guitar or a piano and lock into some chord progression, whatever, And it's not that my will is to write a song. My will is to just get it sort of tune up or an alignment. Something's missing. There's like a hunger I can't describe. And I'm not even aware that I'm going to be writing a song, but usually I just start playing the instrument, and through that meditative quality that happens with the repetition, because I'm not a harnessed, a well-versed musician, so all my songs tend to be 3 chords, if 4, maximum. So it's easy to get into a meditative state, and the words come out of my mouth through melody coming from my brain. So it comes very quickly. And the song Black is a story about, I guess internalized about all the friends I'd lost from heroin addiction, and those who are still addicts, those who have survived, and I've been clear from that path for many, many years, and those who, of course, have lost their lives, But the song is actually from the perspective of a ghost who's telling the story, and the ghost is telling their perspective, things when people are using, they share things with one another, needles, they nod out together, they share space. They share this like spiritual, dimension together with drugs. And, if your friend is suffering, it's very, very difficult for them to communicate with you on outside of that dimension they feel that they're on, the drug dimension, So there's always a lot of sadness in my life and loss. But I had a friend overdose. In January, it'll be 2 years, and he survived. But it was the first time, I think because I was a mom, it was the first time I had connected with anger. And he survived. Like, I should be super happy he wasn't dead like all my other friends, who didn't make it. He was alive, but I was angry for the first time ever, And Black comes from that. Comes from this. Black is the shadow of the person. It's their shadow. The black is themselves. While they're shooting up, that's the shadow. And when they're high, the angel of death, the French, I used the French language to put a kind of mirror up. It was like a fantasy where, I'm not dying, this is beautiful. So it romanticizes the action of being high, but it's just the perspective of the ghost is not showing anger. She is telling their perspective. So there's no real judgment. There's no real anger. It's just blunt.
Goes back to that line, your anger is a gift. I mean, I've felt that anger towards the same types of situations, or something like that. But, to be able to have that ability to harness into something like this, the most purest form of three chords and the truth, as you were sort of saying earlier in there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Very old school. I think most people that write songs, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like human beings are very simplistic, natured beings. I feel like we, make mountains out of molehills.
I was sort of comparing a little bit, because I know you started this year a little bit with celebrating the 20th anniversary of Moon Pix, a beautiful record too.
Thank you.
And there was, I don't know, unless I got my information wrong, I thought there was some interesting little comparisons, or not comparisons, but similarities but between then and now, because, you had considered quitting music before that record, I think, and you had, I think, maybe even considered before this record. And that one was recorded in Australia, and I think I read somewhere where you considered even going back to Australia, before
I know.
this. Yeah.
I don't know how to describe what I was also wanting to move to Africa when I found out right before I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
But it's when I found out that I was pregnant that I don't know what it is about Australia. There's something about it's like this prehistoric, surreal Africa. I share the same feeling. It has the same resonance for me. The landscape. I feel very connected with the earth there. It feels very. It feels like the earth is open. I don't on a other dimension. I'm speaking of South Africa. I've only been to North and South. I've always longed to go all over the continent of Africa, but I've only been to South Africa and North Africa. But I was speaking about the lands in South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania. Those are the only places I've been. But there's something. I think it's just this. I didn't grow up with the terrain, and I think the animals of those lands and the cultural, indigenous, tribal. It's just like this huge reflection of the past that represents a direct link to all humanity. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I just long for that reality. It just seems normal to me. This other stuff, all this church and this society, and this just seems like all these broken pillars, all these broken, just false God stuff. It's just so corrupted, and all these people are. I feel like so many people are so sick, from conforming, through all these years, thousands. But I just love terrain. The terrain in those places feels comfortable to my mind.
I mean, it's the most primal part of our history that we could go back to. So, it's something deep inside of us all. Yeah. I'll kind of wrap up here, and I was kind of hitting at Moon Pix there for a second. That record famously had Metal Hearts, which you would re-record 10 years later, and now it's been 10 years later again. What does that song mean to you today, if anything different than it did then?
Foremost, Moon Pix being the one record, the initial record, where I started to understand that there were some people, I guess, fans, that were relating to me as a human that helped them relate to the world around them. And when I was younger, when Moon Pix came out, for instance, that these people I began meeting, these fans, they helped me in turn relate to the world that I was living in, which I was writing songs, and I was very, uncomfortable, feeling like it was pretentious, it was a class thing to me. It was like I have a 10th grade education. I didn't go to college. Everybody around me in indie rock was in college. Everybody at the record label was in college. I came from a different perspective. I was still stealing food from grocery stores just to survive in New York, but I felt like being attached to this class system title of indie rock made me really uncomfortable because I knew that I didn't fit in. I knew that I wasn't part of a scene necessarily. I know that may sound strange to you, but I remember being there. And there were some friends that I had made along the way whose bands played and, put out records and things, and I began to become friends with different bands. And the person that put out Moon Pix, the person that recorded Moon Pix, that produced Moon Pix, that young girl, she didn't feel part of anything, but over these years, these fans helped her understand that she was part of something, that she was part of the world, their world, that they too were in their solitude. They too didn't appreciate conformity, the norms, the impossibility of those exhausting norms, in so to speak, I'm guessing. But and so then when I went back, when I went back for this 20th anniversary, I had signed with Domino Records in February, and I had given, I was about to master the record, and I waited a second because I had just come off tour with Lana Del Rey. I had this song called Woman, which was the first song and the last song that I worked on and then finished. It wasn't a part of the album. I didn't give it to Matador, who said the record was no good, and I didn't give it to Domino, who loved this record, Wander. But when I said, hold on a second, and I came home from tour with Lana, and I realized, dude, if you sing on this, it's not going to be a sad cat power song about my lonely perspective on this topic. It's going to be, your perspective. It's going to make more of an impact to young women, to young men, to people who maybe need to hear it and feel something. They need to feel something, or they need to feel some kind of acknowledgement, understanding, validation, fortification, something that, anyway. And so I asked her, and she said yes. And the day she came in the studio, I had to fly to Australia for this 20th anniversary show. And she came in the studio, and I knew that what I was doing was right. I knew that me not putting it on the album was right initially. I didn't know why. I didn't want to deliver it. I didn't understand until, I met with Lana, became friendly with Lana, then went on tour with Lana, then became friends. And us just talking about our past with men, businessmen we worked with, record label people, boyfriends, our own fathers. It made more sense to me. It dawned on me that, and now I'm so grateful that I realized that I needed to put it out, because I think that it's exactly the point that we need to see each other as a group. We need to see each other as an ally, an alliance, at any time when our leaders are taking away our freedom, we need to be seen as an alliance. And so, anyway, I had to leave her in the studio because I had to run to the airplane. And when I was running to the airplane, when I got to Australia and I'm on stage after the rehearsal for the Moon Pix album in a dress, and I realized, I'm standing here in a dress, standing for myself. This young girl who would never wear a dress, she's a tomboy, and she on purpose made sure to be a tomboy. That's what she had to do as a child. She had a reason she had to do that. And so here I am in a dress as a woman. I'm feeling like, for the first time, I'm more than competent to deliver this message. And before, the year before, where I didn't have a record label, and, when it was told that I wasn't a good artist, by my ex-label, who I thought were my family, which was, I won't even get into that. And Lana reached out to me at the time when I didn't have a record label and reminded me, Sean, what are you talking about? You're part of the musical landscape currently. Like, she reminded me of that old indie rock thing of touring with, Dirty Three and the Blues Explosion, having friends that were part of this time. She helped me feel part of this time where Nick Cave also reached out to me and asked me to play with him when he came to America. And, I really needed that at a time when I didn't have a label. They turned their back on me. The record stores were gone. My friends' bands pretty much were all gone. So when I'm in Australia and I'm singing these old songs that I wrote when I was very, very, very sure I had no idea if I was going to survive even this life, and I'm in a dress and I'm singing these songs, I was able to sing these songs in a way, if I could go back in time, I felt sure I was doing that night, telling myself, I knew you could do it, and you know what, I know you're going to keep doing it. And I think that's why that song Woman is so important right now, because we have had to historically always keep doing it, and that's the bottom line. And I think that's why I wanted to call the record Wander, because I believe it's a state of mind. We have to make sure we collect ourselves, with our integrity and our sense of being and our purpose before we, and then we have to make that choice in our mind first before we move forward out of abusive relationship, out of a horrible working condition, or whatever it is that we need as women as humans to move forward. We do have the choice. We are in the industrialized world. We can't be feeling sorry for ourselves. We have to move forward if we can, because the whole rest of the world pretty much depends on us, because we are in the industrialized, and we got to deal with this, this criminal that's running this country, and I know that we're doing the best that we can.
That is one of your most powerful songs, and it has already spoken to many people, women and men, myself included. And when November 6th gets here, I'm, hopeful that alliance, that community, does speak out, because we have to.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's part of we have freedom. We have freedom to do that. We have freedom to expand our community and, search for other communities and empower our community with other communities so that we may tackle this criminal. And it's not about gender or color. It's about freedom and having the freedom to be strong together to tackle our enemy, this criminal. And so, it's a very important time, and it's sadly media is not going to drive it for us. We should never trust the media to drive, this home, this message that we need to make sure that our young people are registered, that our young people are learning who's the best candidates to, spread the word about. And
Shawn, thank you so much. I mean, seriously, thank you
you
so much for all the music, for this new record, Wanderer, and all the music in the past, too. I'm looking forward to the show tomorrow. Me and my wife will both be there.
Oh, cool. That's great. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I love Louisville. I have such a beautiful, my first memory there. So beautiful, so beautiful. Everyone's just incredible. I love it. I've missed it so much. Thank you so much for having me back, Louisville. I love you so much. I can't wait to sing for you guys.
We'll be ready. Thank you, Shawn. Take care.
Take it easy. You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
My eternal thanks to Shawn Marshall. The new Cat Power record is called Wanderer. It is out now. And if you haven't, hit that subscribe button right now so you can keep up with these interviews. YouTube or podcasts at iTunes, wherever you're getting it from. Subscribe. Give us a rating. Leave a review as well if you can do that. Then you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern. You'll also find some bonus episodes of this series over there. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.